My name is Mike Fleishman, Fleishman Law, solo practitioner here in Tucson, Arizona. I've been practicing for about coming up on 8 years. I've enjoyed this quite a bit. I enjoy at least being able to give people information. I mean, when they're armed with knowledge, at least they're going to make an educated decision. I'm a facilitator of information for homeowners. I mean, I field calls all the time and simply may point someone in the right direction. I may answer a couple quick questions. Someone may hire me for a consultation. We sit down for an hour. We roll through the entire sort of spectrum of, loan modification, short sale, deeds in lieu of foreclosure, walking away, strategic default, and bankruptcy. All the issues that may center around a single property and what might be the best decision. And then there's times where litigation becomes necessary because there are specific causes of action that I have found it rises to the level that stopping a trustee sale is sort of the last ditch effort that we have. Because for a lot of homeowners, they may have actually been wronged, and this is really the only way to go about it. Calling the servicer to say, I think I've been wronged, simply is not gonna work. Oh, there's clearly a lot of misinformation. There's misinformation among, you've got real estate agents with their own blogs, and they're talking about, the impact of deficiency judgments, and they're in essence giving legal advice. You even have disagreements among lawyers, and part of it is that this is still somewhat uncharted territory legally. The resources are out there, but the ability to sort of winnow through all of that, that's the difficulty. I think in general with the internet, it's just most people are going to pop some set of search words into Google, and they're more than likely going to be dealing with the first page. Maybe the best information is on the 6th page of Google, but the first page is dominated by perhaps people who have figured out crafty ways at search engine optimization to get to that first page. That doesn't mean that the information is accurate. And it doesn't mean that it's not somebody who has found a way to pull you in to sell you something or to market some product that is perhaps not in your best interest. It's terribly disheartening. It's also the people who call up and they tell me all the things that happened, and I say, has the house been sold? Yeah, the house sold yesterday. If you had just given me a call 3 months ago. And so if there's one takeaway that I would always tell people, if you have questions in the process and you just need to understand what you ought to be doing, don't ignore the notices that you're getting. If you get a notice of trustee sale, calendar in your head, I've got 3 months to deal with this, but don't deal with it at the last moment hoping that the bank's just going to work with you. They may absolutely work with you and everything's going to work out well. But if there's a trustee sale scheduled, until it goes away and you know that it's been canceled, it's live, and it's dangerous. I mean, you will lose your home if you don't do something to deal with that fact ahead of time. Tucson's not a particularly wealthy or affluent city to begin with, and so to introduce anything, much of our economy is based on construction, tourism. So when things turned, in 2008, 2009, and the housing boom stopped, a lot of people were in very serious, trouble. You had pool builders, you had home builders, you had, fly-by-night mortgage brokers. When all of them, when the train stopped, it was a huge impact. So we've definitely seen a tremendous downturn in businesses. The things that come first, restaurants and the places where people are going to stop spending their money. So So I don't think we're alone, but it's clearly been very impactful here. Somehow it seems that the banks have really changed their view of doing short sales. They seem willing at some level to accept that we've probably got a ready and willing buyer here. We're not going to do better in a foreclosure. In fact, we're probably going to do worse once it gets the stigma of being a real estate owned property. Especially when you're dealing with the federal government, everyone wants to lowball that. So I think the short sale really has risen in prominence in use. It's a viable answer in certain circumstances. I haven't been a particularly big fan of, and in fact, I've had a few realtors who were working short sales. People came to see me on a consultation, and I gave them the information that I did. They went and they stopped their short sale, and the reason that much to the chagrin of a lot of real estate agents, there are times when it just doesn't make sense to go forward with a short sale when the impact, most people believe that I should go through a short sale because the impact on my credit rating is far less than if I go through on a foreclosure. Well, there's a lot of commentary on whether that is even the case, and for a lot of people who are going through short sales, they've already fallen behind 30, 60, 90 days. When you start getting into the 90 and 120 day lates, the impact on your credit can be just as drastic or awfully close to as if you had gone through a foreclosure anyway. So if that is the only reason that you're doing a short sale versus simply allowing the property to go, then I don't really see any great benefit. Robo signing in particular, I think with the what has been uncovered in that, it clearly has created it's created a lot of problems for the banks, unquestionably, but I think it's also created a lot of problems for people like myself. As an attorney, you get people calling who believe that now every single loan, theirs included, has some actionable fraud related to how maybe the transactions have taken place. Now, it remains to be seen exactly what causes of action are going to survive, and that's all being tested by different courts across the country. I think what a lot of homeowners need to understand is that each state has its own body of law, and there are going to be certain causes of action that may come under federal law. You'll find a lot of banks, when cases get filed, they may remove the case to federal court where they have perhaps a body of law that they would rather draw on, or they're dealing with federal causes of action. So if a homeowner sues saying that they're the intended beneficiary of a contract between the U.S. government and a particular bank, that may imply certain things related to a federal law or the contracts between the two of them, and that may be actionable in a federal court. I have heard anecdotally of people getting a free house. I have not seen that in my practice once. And it all kind of comes back to this idea that, well, if we can challenge the chain of title, and that if there's been invalid assignments along the way, in other words, the classic story is kind of, you went to the mortgage broker, they sold that loan immediately off into the secondary market to someone like Countrywide. They pooled it, they sliced it, they diced it, they sold it off to bond investors. That somehow along that chain of when the loan was originated to the point that it got into this trust, that somewhere there's a break in that chain of title. And if you can show that chain has been broken, that at the end of the day, the only remedy is a free house, because no one is entitled to payment under that original obligation. There may be some actionable fraud in how things were done in the course of that. It's a question, though, of whether it's something that will stand up in court. I'd say that it's 50-50. Some people clearly understand that they're not emotionally attached to the house the way that they thought they were. Silenced when groaned and cried. Coming at this from purely a financial perspective. Those are the people that often can have the most rational decision-making process. It's off. I had a case recently where a husband and wife, the wife had a stroke, and the need for her to have something that she was comfortable with and understood. Right. There was a strong emotional attachment to that house, and so there may be intangible factors that you can never sort of put into rational thought as to how to deal with a situation. So I try to get a holistic view of the homeowner, their situation, to decide what's going to be the best. Oftentimes, it's not me. Clearly, I'm not the one making the decision. If somebody's just meeting me for a consultation, I arm them with all the knowledge that I have, and hopefully arm them to make the best decision that they're going to make. Sometimes it may end up being a case that is litigated, depending on the circumstance, or sometimes they walk away and say, thank you very much, we're going to let the house go because the bank doesn't have any recourse against us. Part of the reason that people are more likely to be able to walk away in Arizona specifically is because we have strong anti-deficiency protection laws, meaning that the amount, if you were to let a house go to foreclosure, the bank forecloses, you owed 220, the bank sells it for 150, the bank can't come after you for the difference under specific circumstances. And in Arizona, it happens to be if the house is less than 2.5 acres and is used for either a single family home or a duplex, then that protection kicks in. And for those people, when they realize that the bank may not have recourse against them, they seem far more likely to consider, why would I straddle myself with an underwater home that's not going to come back around for another 15, 20 years, when I can just go either rent a home or rent to buy the house, or figure something else out. It's difficult to put a perfect timeline on the foreclosure process. I've had people ask me, what's the fastest the bank is going to foreclose on me? And how long? Some people say, well, how long can we drag this thing out? There are clearly some people who are coming to see me or asking questions, or they're strategically thinking about how to stay in a home the longest. I'm willing to give people legal advice at any stage in the process, but my preference is always to deal with things proactively. Oftentimes, I get people coming to see me at the very end of the process, after their home's been sold. And that's the worst time to come see me, because they've typically lost most of their legal rights. So the beginning of the stage in the foreclosure process is you have probably, homeowner has probably fallen behind several months. They start getting dunning letters from the bank. They're getting collections notices. They're getting phone calls constantly. At some point, if you stop answering the phone calls and you don't respond to the letters in any kind of way, they will probably fast track it into the foreclosure department. When it gets there, oftentimes it is pushed out to a law firm in the state of Arizona who handles these. Tiffany and Bosco is a standard big Phoenix firm that handles a lot of the foreclosures in the state of Arizona. When they get involved, it's kind of on the track to foreclosure. They're not going to slow that train unless there's very good reason for it. Now, one of the problems that we had in Arizona, and something that kind of came out and it's been talked about in the big mortgage settlement, is it was this dual tracking where people were being considered for a modification at the same time as foreclosure proceedings were happening. And one of the most troubling things is that a homeowner could get something called a notice of trustee sale. That's when it's moved into the foreclosure department. That law firm has now taken the case. They go and they record a document called a notice of trustee sale. It says basically what the principal amount of the loan is, who the trustor or the person who owes the money, the borrower, is, and most importantly, when that sale is being scheduled for. They all take place on the courthouse steps. In Tucson, it's on the east side of the Superior Court building, and every day you go down there between 10:30 and 1 o'clock, there are a number of people, investors and trustees who are actually, they actually have companies that do all this work for them. But it's so very important in that those early stages not to just blow off the fact that you've received a notice of trustee sale, because what a lot of people were saying is, I got a notice of trustee sale. They call their servicer, don't worry about that. The person being trusting says, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm working on a modification. The most damaging, or the saddest calls for me is, I thought I was in a modification. I thought I had a modification, or the bank said even up until the day, I didn't know anything about it. They may get the notice of trustees sale, and what happens in Arizona is you've got 91 days until that sale is scheduled. Well, on the day of that sale, they don't have to inform the borrower that the sale has been postponed. And so it may go another month and another month. It may go month after month after month where a cancellation or a postponement is simply called out. The homeowner doesn't know that's happening. And if they're not tracking that process, which is extremely important to do, they may end up losing the house while they're in the middle of a loan modification process. Well, the first thing I try to understand from any homeowner is, where are you at? I find myself asked, one of the first questions is determined, and it's almost always a yes, and at least in the state of Arizona, and frankly across the country, it seems to be a yes. What do you owe, and what's the fair market value of the property? We start with the question of, are you underwater? And then I often will start to ask them the questions of, does it make sense, honestly, to keep a hold of this property? Not to be so worried about the
no solace